It's the heavy metal band Disturbed. Ooh, Hey there, Jay Fayza, the laziest internet book nerd. So lazy, in fact, I listen to audiobooks. You disgust me. I'm here to review the first book in the children's fantasy series Harry Potter by JK Rowling. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Called the Sorcerer's Stone in North America. I don't know why. I'm going to divide this review into two categories. The first being world building, and the second being plot. Let's start with world building, okay? Now the books, they start off with a really strong hook. It follows the very miserable life of Harry Potter with his adoptive family, the Dursleys. The Dursleys force him to sleep in a cupboard underneath the stairs. The family bullies him all the time. I mean, really, social services should really look into this. It's a hard knock life for us. It seems hopeless, right? But then BAM! Bada bing, bada boom! A giant named Hagrid barges into the house. He lights a bunch of logs on fire with his magical umbrella. Then he tells Harry, "You're a wizard, Harry." You're a wizard, Harry. Unlike the real world, where he's unpopular and bullied, in the wizarding world, he's actually wanted, and people like him. Plus, he's gonna move away from the cupboard and live in Hogwarts, which is a step up. Because Harry Potter's home situation is so relatable, when Hagrid barges into the house and explains Harry that there's a wizarding world out there, there's a whole culture for him to learn and see. It's kind of like Hagrid is telling that to us. That's the first thing you need to know about this book. It's an escapist fantasy. It's for nerds and other depressed people. There's a lot of explaining in this book, be it Hagrid, Dumbledore, Hermione, Ron, Oliver Wood. In Diagon Alley, we learn about wands and owls. At the train heading towards Hogwarts, we learn about chocolate frogs. There we also meet Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. Ron tells us about Quidditch, the sport where you literally fly on a broomstick and throw balls into metal rings. Hermione tells us about spells and books she's read, and the spells and books that you, the reader, need to know about. Normally I don't like books that tell more than they show. There's too much talking! But JK Rowling kind of gets away with it because the characters are explaining everything to Harry Potter, and Harry Potter is conversing with them because he's just as confused as we are. Though this is an escapist fantasy, the wizards and witches are very relatable. Let's talk about the bullies for a moment. Draco Malfoy and Professor Snape. There's this one scene in the book where Draco Malfoy insults Ron Weasley about coming from a poor family. Draco goes on this long tirade, just antagonizing Ron. When Ron dives out at Draco and literally grabs the guy's collar, Snape pops up and scolds Ron. Harry and Hagrid try to explain to Snape what happened, but because Snape doesn't really like Harry that much, he responds with, 10 points for Gryffindor, you shouldn't have been fighting. That's so bad. It's almost like Snape was just waiting in the corner for Ron to mess up, you know? Harry and Ron are seething with anger. They literally tell you that they hate Draco and they hate Snape, and we feel it. I hate bullies. Don't you just want to beat them up? Weren't you a bully? Why'd you find Jesus? The culture and relatability in Harry Potter builds something called atmosphere. I could talk about a lot of things when talking about atmosphere in Harry Potter. I could talk about the classes that they took, like how to fly on a broomstick 101. But instead, let me talk to you about Quidditch. So you first hear about Quidditch from Hagrid, and then Ron. Then you're taught about Quidditch from the captain of the Gryffindor team, Oliver Wood. Harry joins the team, and you see a Quidditch match being played. Now, there are many ways that JK Rowling could have written the Quidditch match. She could have written the matches in the perspective of Harry, because Harry is an athlete, he's literally playing in the Quidditch match. It would have been a decent perspective to have. But no, instead, she focuses on Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, i.e. the audience. I mean, think about it. If we just saw the Quidditch matches in Harry's perspective, then we would lose the characters' reactions. This match isn't done in a vacuum. That is to say, when Harry catches the snitch, or when Snape does like a counterspell on Harry's broom, those have real world consequences to the characters, and it affects them. I always thought of myself as like a fly on the wall when reading Harry Potter. That's kind of where I am. I think I'll stop it there when it comes to world building. I think world building is the strongest aspect in this book. It's solid. Let's talk about the second category in this review though, and that is plot. I'm not gonna waste your time. You know, I'm gonna be straightforward with you. You know, I don't wanna lie. The plot in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, it's pretty good. I mean, we get an introduction to the Dark Lord Voldemort. He attacked Harry when he was a baby, but, you know, Harry Potter lived, Harry got a scar, and, you know, Voldemort nearly dies. I mean, do we really have to explain this? I mean, who doesn't know this story? I mean, who are we even talking to? The thing is, we don't actually get to see Voldemort until the very end of the book. And when we do see him, all he says is, "Seize Harry!" Like, everything we see of him is a setup for the next book. like a Marvel movie. Let's take a step back. The main plot of this book can be summed up in a few sentences. There was a robbery at Gringotts' vault. The robbers were looking for the Philosopher's Stone, but the stone is underneath a trap door. Voldemort wants the stone so he could become immortal and get his body back. Because right now, he's sharing his body with the professor in Hogwarts, Professor Quirrell. Or is it Quirrelly? I think it's Quirrelly. Does that sound like a good plot to you overall? The worst part about this plot is that it just comes across as this giant checklist of things that these heroes need to do. And if they just do this and that and this and that, they'll end up getting the stone. That's especially true in the second to last chapter. But all that solving puzzles and teamwork is kind of thrown out the window. At the very end, it's Harry Potter's parents' love that ends up burning Voldemort's skin. That's just that's just silly. I know this is a children's book, but that's pretty dumb. Love conquering, love burning Voldemort's skin and defeating him. I feel like she could have thought of something a little bit better than that. In my personal view, the world building was so great that it makes up for the bad plot. That's kind of why I separated this video into two categories, because one of the categories is just infinitely superior than the other. I'll make a few more points before this review ends. I think the scene with the mirror that projects people's desires was pretty cool. At the end of the book, Professor Quirrell tells Harry that he was the one who was cursing the broom during the Quidditch match when everyone else thought it was Professor Snape who was doing that. Professor Snape was actually doing a counter curse, and I think that's really sweet of Professor Snape to do. Finally, the relationship that Hermione Granger has with Ron Weasley and Harry Potter is quite adorable. At first, she's all like, I'm uptight. But then over time, you realize that Hermione Granger is actually a very loyal and endearing person. Hermione Granger is also kind of funny too. When she just flat out says, shut up, I really feel that. So for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I'm thinking of giving it a... It made $1 billion. Give it a 10 out of 10. A Nimbus 2000 out of 10.
Transition. It is 5 a.m. right now, and I am going to go to bed. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Catch you later.